Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. In this episode, it's all about headlights. We need to repair a headlight, we need to figure out how to mount both the headlights, and we need to resurface both the headlights. Hopefully we'll be able to get it all done in one episode, but we're just gonna have to get started and find out. Stay tuned. Alright, so the first step of this project is going to be to test both the headlights. I ordered both the headlights on eBay, and they were listed as in working condition, but you never really know when you get something like that. I got one for $200, and I got another one later on in the build. I got one way early on in the build, I think before we even ripped the front off, for $200, and I got one much later in the build for about $600. The one that was $200 is very badly damaged, but I think it's still salvageable. They normally cost about $2,000, so this is a pretty good bargain if we can make it work. Luckily, the plugs are still intact on the car, so I'm just gonna set them anywhere roughly that works, plug them in, and then we'll attach the car to the battery and give it a try. So this is kind of interesting. I just plugged the car in for the first time with the lights plugged in, and we got what looked to be like a low beam. But I have the key right here, and then just as I went to go change the camera, they just shut themselves off. So I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna go ahead and now jump in behind the wheel. So, I mean, that does verify though that at least we have good low beam. So let's try some other stuff out here. Okay, so the car's on now. Headlight button. I don't know, there's another button I'm hitting, I don't know what it does, and it's probably the fog lights, which we don't have hooked up. So that's a left blinker, right blinker, high beams. Alright, I'm pretty positive that we're all good. So that's the first step down. Let me stand in front of these lights for you guys. That's the first step down, so the next thing we gotta do is figure out how to repair the busted parts of these headlights. Alright, so the workbench is so messed up that I had to just set up this table and work off of this. The bottom side of this is jacked. We lost a big section here and a mount back here. And there's a decent sized crack running through here. So we'll plastic weld all that stuff up to get it watertight. Just remember, you gotta keep your headlights watertight. And we need those mounting points back, so we'll figure out a way to do that. But first, before I do that, if you look in here, this bulb is a little foggy. It looks like it got some sort of material on it, well, it's not the bulb, it's the outside of the glass. And I was looking on the Lotus parts site, and they do sell a lot of the headlight as these different components. Like you can buy the outside plastic, and you can buy some components inside, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. But because of that, it's making me think that maybe there's a possibility I could get that thing out and clean it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually turn this thing around and just start diving into the back here, and just try and pull that glass out in any way I can and then clean it up. Alright, unfortunate, but that was unsuccessful. To get in there, to get that little bit of fog off, we're going to have to peel the outside lens off of this light, and I'm just not willing to do that right now at this stage because I just don't really think it's worth it. So, if we get it all put back together and mounted up correctly and it works great for a while and I want to do it later, that's something I'll come back and do later. But, it would involve baking it for a little bit to warm up that, there's an adhesive all around here, and then you pull the top light off, and, you bake it too long and you screw up your light. So, alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is plastic weld up these holes and these cracks and stuff. Alright, so we finished the first stage of the repairs on these two parts, on the bottom of these two parts. So this is an example of one that has all the mounting points intact now. So you have two here and you have two back there. This one was busted in halfway, so I built up the replacement here and put the what is that? That would be a nut, it's like a like got threads on the back basically to grip onto the plastic, and then it receives a bolt there. So anytime you have a crack in here, what I do is I like to kind of melt the two pieces of plastic together on the line of the crack, and then I come in and overlap with this plastic filler just to go on top of it, keep everything kind of waterproof as much as possible. Now these won't be like 100% waterproof, like you couldn't apply pressure, but they'll keep the atmospheric like water out and stuff like that, which is what you want in case water flies up underneath your car. So this one was much more badly damaged. There's a big hole right here where this piece was, and it completely ripped off. And that would have stayed on the car that this was on. So there's that right there, and then there's this one back here. Again, same deal. This post right here on this one ripped off and left that hole. So these are two things I need to build back up onto this one or rebuild. But first I kind of want to see where they go on the car. And now I saw something else that's kind of a bummer. Well, it's not really a big deal. On the inside of this one, so if you look here, you can see that there's kind of like some dirt and like a line of like dirt, water type of stuff. And I was rubbing it on the front and, well, it's not coming off. It's because it's on the inside of the glass. Well, plastic. So that means that I will have to bake this thing to separate the outside glass from the inside plastic. Oh shit, this is still on. I almost burnt my light here. So I am gonna have to take this home and bake it. I don't have an oven here, and I don't think it would be a good idea to use the blowtorch. Yeah, I'm pretty positive that would be a bad idea. So I'll probably bake it and separate it and clean it out at home. We'll see if I film any of that or not. If not, I'll just tell you guys the details. But for now, what I'm going to do is actually come over here to our front clamshell, and I'm going to put the black vents back in this. I'm going to install it, and then I'm going to move it over to the car. And then if we come over to the car, this is where I need to like start test fitting the headlights and see where things go and line up. These are the OEM brackets, and they bolted onto the side of the frame rail, something like that. So what I want to do is kind of get the clamshell on here and in the right spot and start to kind of figure out how these headlights are positioned and understand what this other bracket does. So there's this bracket right here that I don't know how this stayed on the car, or how I took this stuff apart so long ago. I don't even know where this bracket came from, but that was where it broke off of the headlight that never even came with this car. And then I read somewhere online that these two parts bolted onto the front clamshell, but I don't remember unbolting it from the front clamshell. So apparently there's a piece that goes in to a headlight right about like that, and then it bolts into the clamshell over there. So I need to kind of learn more about that, and that's why I'm going to try and do like a mock assembly of everything and understand what the heck that bracket did and where it went to. And obviously this front one, at least one of the bolts went to the front of the frame rail. I assume it's the one that ripped off on both of these cars, and I don't know where that one went at all. These don't seem to be damaged, so they must have attached to something that was pretty wimpy. So I'm gonna just put everything together that I can so we can learn some stuff about it. All right, before we go and mount the clamshell on here, I went back and I reviewed some of the old videos. I went back to the episode where we did the front end teardown and kind of figured out how all this stuff went back together. I had this piece and I actually bent it around and kind of got it back into the right shape and figured out how this all bolts up. And why I was doing that is because this piece looked like the other piece that I had over there, which mounts the headlights. These little guys are what those little threaded things that go into the back of the headlight mounts. Obviously they got ripped out of whatever headlight used to be on this car. So here's what we used to have. I dug this out of the trash. This was the old bracket that went onto our frame rail, so it mounts on something like that. From there, this piece mounted on like this, coming off of here. Now the oil cooler goes in here where my hand is, and this piece would normally be bent up a little bit more. And then from there you have this piece also that goes on the frame rail like that, and that gives you 3 mounting places for the headlight. One right here, one right here, and one right here, and I don't know exactly where the 4th one came from. So what that means though is for us to get our headlights mounted, we're going to need to get our oil cooler bracket mounted as well, which is not a problem, something we needed to do, and I'm quite excited to do it. It's going to be very difficult because we don't have a reference point for any of this. So what I'm going to start by doing is placing the clamshell exactly where I want it, then we'll move the headlight to where we want it, and then the headlight will tell us where we need to put our oil cooler and our other headlight bracket. All right, well that took a while, but we figured out a lot of really good stuff. First off, all the body panels fit together nicely. That's fantastic, that's good news. And the second thing is we kind of figured out how these are gonna go together and that the lights fit in there nicely and everything like that. And I actually was able to use this mounting point. So this is the mounting point that bolts on to the frame rail. So I was able to use this mounting point and mark off where the first bracket needs to go to mount this headlight to the frame rail on the passenger side. And then so I figured out that I absolutely have to have this mounting point set up to even start thinking about the back mounting points and the other stuff for the driver's side. So now what I need to do is grab the measuring tape and I'm going to figure out exactly where to build this mounting point, and I got to replicate what is going on over here, right over here. All right, we got our mounting point added onto this thing. I just used a plastic welder and started with one that had popped off of a different headlight that I had that came with the car, and then I just plastic welded on there and then just did a lot of build up so it had a lot of structure to it. So that's all good. Now this is the headlight that has the gunk on the inside, so I'm gonna take it home and I'm gonna do some baking tonight, and with any luck I'll be back tomorrow and I'll have a cleaned up headlight. Cross fingers. All right, so we're back here in the shop. It's day 2 of this episode, and we started off the morning by getting something that's pretty cool. I want to show you and share you guys. Eric was kind enough to come out and help me, and we picked up an air compressor that is finally capable of spraying paint. So it's a big one, and Eric got a new truck that can haul it. Thanks for buying a truck just to get my air compressor. I really appreciate that. So now we're going to try not to kill ourselves. We don't have a forklift, and we got to bring that thing down and then over, and I'm going to try and put it in this corner here in the shop. So we got to move the car and hopefully very safely unload a massive air compressor. All right, well, we got the tank down. The only casualty was my pants. I hulked out and kind of lost some structural integrity of my pants. I'll zip tie those back together though, and we're just gonna move this back in the shop. We're alive, kind of. Oh, that was the dumbest thing we're gonna do all year, I promise. All right, we got the air compressor in. It still needs to be wired up before we can run it, but luckily the breaker box is right behind it, and we did a little no-go replacement on it. Give it our own little touch. Awesome, moving on back to headlight stuff. All right, so baking my headlight was really successful. Here's what I did to go ahead and remove this lens. So the lens sits on the light like this, basically. What I did was I preheated my oven to 270 degrees and I placed this light in there for 6 minutes. You want to have a prepared surface to set it out on, and you also want to have some like gloves or something like that that can deal with hot stuff, because 270 degrees is kind of hot to your skin. And you also want to have some sort of a prying tool ready. So I just used a butter knife from the kitchen. You stick it in the edge here and you just slowly pry stuff off. And the plastic will be a little bit malleable. It'll be a little bit softer than normal, and just kind of work your way around and pry it off. And what you have is this rubber. I think it's called butyl rubber, and it's all around the edges here. And the way to put these back on when you're done, a lot of people do the same thing. They heat the thing back up and then just stick it back on with the existing rubber, but I can't do that because we're not back in my house. So I have a little black RTV that I'm going to use to put this thing back together. So once you have your lens off, I can see here this is where there's a bunch of dirt in here that I want to clean off, and I'm going to clean the inside of this really well. I also covered this whole thing in a little bit of saran wrap, plastic wrap, to keep all the dust out of here and everything. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to clean that lens up really well, I'm going to clean all this glass, and then I'm going to go ahead and reseal the light housing back together. All right, so I got the first stage of cleaning done, which I just did with some Windex. I'm gonna come back with the paint prep spray that I used. It's a wax and degrease remover also. But I wanted to show you guys something I'm gonna repair first. So when you look at this lens, it looks a little bit kind of poor from this aspect. Let me check to make sure the camera's focused in. Of course it's not. All right, sorry, it's hard to get the camera focused. So when you look at this, it looks like it's poor quality around here, and it looks like the light's damaged here. Now on the outside, this is perfectly clean. What's happened is on the inside that your primer has actually chipped off. Now this is either black paint from the factory, or this is the type of primer that we actually used on the side panels for the Evora. And it's a primer that, you know, helps promote adhesion, so it'll be on both sides of the panel. So anyways, that's just from this black stuff chipping off. So if you have any of that, while you have your panel off, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and grab the same exact black primer that I used on the Evora. It's 3M's window seal primer, and I'm gonna go ahead and set that. I'm gonna re-primer this area right here and this area right here, and then when we flip it back around, it'll look all clean along this whole line right here. All right, we got our finished product with the light here, obviously before the resurfacing of the top of the glass, but the inside of the glass is nice and clean. We got that bulb as cleaned off as possible. Unfortunately, it looks like something did kind of get burnt onto the front of that bulb, as well as the front of this bulb. So it seems to me like anytime moisture gets inside these lights, if they hit the front of that bulb, the glass part of that xenon headlight, it's gonna burn up there, and that's just whatever. I can't change that. I can't fix that. So what we did then is I used a handheld heat gun to heat up all the rubber that was around here, squeeze this thing back shut, and then I came around with some black RTV and just really sealed the rest of that up all the way around to ensure that we get no moisture or water coming in there at all. So we've done that. We have our mounting points back on here. We don't have our rear mounting point done yet, but I want to figure out how we're going to mount it up first before we even look at that. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is, like what we did with the other side, I'm going to lay the light in there. I'm going to tape across it, have the tape hold it by the top, and then I'm going to find the front mounting point first and figure out where we got to put that bracket. And then I can take the front bumper off of the car and mount the front brackets for both sides of the headlights. All right, so I took my bracket, I marked out where I needed to go, and then I did a punch and drilled out 2 holes in here for my rib nut insert. So what we're gonna do now is the nice people over at Astro Pneumatics, same people that sent me the paint gun, sent me this new rib nut tool, which is very, very nice. And so if you guys don't know, it's very similar to doing a rivet. You just put it through the hole, screw this thing in here, clamp it down, that compresses the rivet. And I showed it in like about 2 episodes ago. So I'm gonna go ahead and rib nut these 2. These are steel rib nuts, and they are gonna go right here in the frame rail, and then that'll allow us to mount and bolt in our bracket with the adjustableness that it's supposed to have. All right, we got the other side clip on. So this is the driver's side. I wanted to just show you guys how that kind of went on there. And then over here we have the passenger side right here that's on there like that. Looks really good. And I've test fitted both the headlights, and they both fit up really nicely onto those mounts. All right, guys, and with that, that is a wrap on this part of the episode. I'm sorry I didn't get the whole thing done, but you know, we'll get it in the next one. I just ran out of time, simply. I'm sorry that there was much more of my ass hanging out in this episode than normal. When I went to catch that air compressor, catching that 300-pound air compressor, I just squatted through my jeans. Shit happens. Yeah, like I said, in the next episode, we're gonna finish up with the mounts to mount the back of the headlights so they can bolt on. We got the front of the headlights; those are great. We're gonna do the mounts for the back of the headlights. We're gonna hang the oil cooler, and I will go over how to refinish a headlight, and then that will be the last thing that we have to do up in this front world. And we could probably just go ahead and start assembly on that. Except I gotta paint those things. Anyways, we'll get that all figured out in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to follow us more, check us out at facebook.com/BS4Build, and we are BS4Build on Instagram. If you like BS4Build and you want to help support what we do in these builds, head over to our shop at BS4Build.com, scroll down to the shop, How do our shop at the thing and scroll down to the shop? Well, just go to our website, beesforbuild.com, scroll down to the shop. We got great shirts like this one and many more on our website over there. And key tags and hats and decals like what we threw on our air compressor. We got all sorts of great stuff all over at our shop at beesforbuild.com. I think that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe. Peace!
Come on!